for the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Featuring site publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McCuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.
All right, we are back. And joining us, I want to say, is probably the world's, becoming the world's most famous videographer, Eddie Radosevich. It's been pointed out, you do need a better title, but what is going on with the bromance between you and Baker Mayfield these days?
Well, I just spent all weekend praying for him and the sins that he has had, because if you listen to any local radio around here, you would think that picking up a penalty is about the same as committing homicide over the weekend. So it's a lot of Baker Mayfield troubled quarterback. There are a lot of P words in this market right now.
And Baker was very soundbitey, I thought, yesterday.
As he should be. He should have gave everybody soft. He should have just given everybody the finger.
He kind of is, I think. I mean,
there are a lot of really, really soft people.
He could totally give everybody the finger if he wanted to, if not for that one stupid thing in Arkansas.
Yeah. And, I mean, God forbid a college student be a college student, because you just can't do that around here these days.
Well, you would say that, Eddie. You are a professional college student, basically. You live your life like I was
never arrested.
Never?
Ever.
Not even for, like...
I've never even been given a drinking ticket.
Not a PI?
Was arrested.
Nothing.
Josh was arrested?
Was arrested.
I'm trying to think. I've been arrested, but it's because... I was driving with an expired license.
That doesn't really count.
But never. I have been hauled into a room at In Cahoots back in the day, and given a talking to, and my friends had to talk the cops out of not arresting me, basically. And I don't know. It was a bad night. So I've had a night.
Well, I mean, don't let anybody in the local media find out, because you'll be crucified if so.
Well, okay, so do you want to name names? Is there someone that is... Because I haven't read all the stuff that had been written from yesterday. I haven't had time to do that.
No.
But, I saw a lot of headlines.
Just driving down here, Pat Jones is an idiot. I almost said the F word.
You almost did.
That was close.
Well, Pat Jones does not put up with the slappies. That's just Pat Jones.
He went 0-10-1.
Well,
fact.
You know I have to deal with Pat Jones. This is another one of those situations, Eddie.
Tell him to call me.
He's not going to.
And I'll tell him he's an idiot.
I don't think Pat's going to waste his time.
And I love Pat Jones, but his whole stance on this Baker Mayfield thing is
he's definitely
it's near imbecile levels.
What is his stance? Like, we don't want to go through the whole thing, but what's the basics of what he's talking about?
He labels Baker Mayfield as having off-field transactions. He's had one, and it was being a college student. And then talking shit to Baylor. Like, people have acted like that is the biggest.
And it's your fault, Eddie.
That's fine. I mean, I think it's hilarious.
I don't understand, like... Do people, A, not think that happens all the time on the football field? And B, I've never heard of a guy getting a flag for saying something.
Well, the penalty, Josh.
It's just like Crash Davis. He must have said...
He went with the C word? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Because people keep asking me, what Baker do to get the flag? They never showed any replays. It had to be him saying something to somebody that was over the line.
He committed homicide on the field, and he should be punished as such. I wouldn't be surprised if he was arrested after practice for some of the stuff that he has said on the field.
And look, this is like yesterday at his press conference. He had a press conference before Lincoln Riley did. Both of them were asked questions regarding, his attitude, his personality, his bravado.
Like, is that the only thing to talk about because it was a bye week? Is that literally where we are at?
It's things. It's the fact that he had a game, and let's face it, we're partly to blame on this for putting up a video of him pregame, which we put up the video when West Virginia and OU were fighting at midfield before the games. Nobody ever blamed a single player or the program or said, these guys are out of control. And I thought for the longest time, like I've said this before on the podcast, like, Baker's going to be this way, which he's going to be this way. He's not making any apologies for how he is. Then he's going to start getting probably, as long as he keeps his nose clean, it's fine. But if he has any problems whatsoever off the field, people are going to make this into a Johnny Manziel thing.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's amazing how much the narrative on him has changed because of the thing in Arkansas, which, again, the running from the pool, like, that was stupid. Like, you can't argue that. But the basics of it was he was a drunk college student. Like, what does that make him in the top, 4 percentile? I mean, like, pretty much 95% of us went through that at some point. Now, maybe not everybody got arrested, but everybody drank too much in college at one point or another.
Who was I mean, I thought about this driving down to Waco, and it's because it's like in that Fort Worth area. It's like all new. And I think that was where Des Bryant got pulled over. Or not Des Bryant, Blackman, right? Was it Blackman or Bryant? They got pulled over driving like 100 miles an hour or something.
I can't remember. Everything I remember of Blackman is
remember
weed.
that.
But I mean, like, I remember all this stuff on I-35. Like, remember the receiver, or was it running back for Texas that got pulled out? And he was like, "Hey, do you know who I am?" And he was drunk driving. I mean, like that. Like Baker was on a college campus, stumbling around drunk, not driving, and you saw him drunkenly walk away, like in his mind, thinking to himself, "Oh, I can run away from this situation." And then he got tackled. And there was a lot of girly screaming that was kind of embarrassing for him, I'm sure. But, yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Eddie. It's not...
The only logical way to explain this, Baker and I just need to go get drunk and then go teepee everybody's house. That's the only logical explanation.
With an Uber for a driver is what it is.
You can take an Uber all the way to Tulsa, TP Pat Jones' house?
I mean, maybe.
I'll pay for that Uber. If we can make that happen, I'll pay for the Uber.
I'll have to call some of my Jinx buddies. Maybe we could just stay up there that evening.
I was driving home from the station today, and George Schroeder was filling in, and he and Pat were talking about it, and everybody keeps bringing up the same point to Pat, which is quarterbacks have won the Heisman Trophy with a lot more baggage than Baker Mayfield has, namely Jameis Winston.
And that's what I'm saying. There is no baggage. Like, he is getting crucified because he talks shit. That is literally the basis of it.
Are you sure you're just not defensive because it was your video?
No, I don't care.
I mean, he called you out in the press conference. Your bromance.
Yeah, I don't care about that, though.
Let's just get into it. I know Josh can't hear anything. Sorry,
I
Josh.
actually can. I heard the intro, so
Okay.
This may be one of our good days.
Let's go through. Let's break down exactly some of the questions and the discussion from Baker yesterday at his press conference. Here's Baker.
Everybody
first.
say a prayer for Baker before you listen to this, because it might hurt your ears.
Here's Baker talking about his personality.
No, I think that's something that I always try and do. I think that's why I've been voted team captain, is because I always try and get the best out of my teammates. And I think that I can get an edge on an opponent very quickly. It's just, I always, I'm aware of my surroundings. And no, I didn't think Eddie was going to be at midfield videoing, but he was. But within those lines, there's stuff that's said that it's not always caught on camera. So I think, my personality, it's something that never changes. So what you see is what you get. It just might not always be, recorded on the field.
You're just a great videographer.
Baker, with that one.
There you go, Eddie, with his 2 cents during the press conference. Here's the thing about
send him a cease and desist.
Here's the thing about the video is, you watch it back. It was clear Baker knew that
he knew I was out
on
there the entire
camera.
time. He knew exactly what he was doing.
And Baker kind of does this little thing. He has this tick, which is, it's like my favorite Chad Stevens commercial.
Is that the Fowler Honda guy?
The Fowler Honda guy. When he's at a Mexican restaurant and they put the plate down and they say, "Be careful, plate's hot." And the first thing he does, he puts his hands on the plate and he's like, "Oh, that's hot." Like Baker kind of has that tick. Like he can't help himself. He's the little boy that wants to play with the mousetrap. That's just part of his personality.
And that
it doesn't make him a horrible person.
That triggers
but it does
a lot of
get him
people.
into trouble from time to time. Because people want you to be, they want to put you in a box and keep you in the box. Don't get outside the box. You're not supposed to get outside the box.
Yeah.
Stay in the box like everybody else. It's kind of like why people hate me for being fat. I have this theory that a lot of people, they don't ever get to eat what they want to eat. And so they get really mad that I'm fat.
I have no idea about that, but
you're getting there, buddy.
I don't even know what that means.
You got to get on a plan.
I think I'm pretty fine right now.
Josh believes the podcast, it sounds like by his silence, the podcast has gone off the rails. Unless
I had muted myself. I did not realize I had muted myself. I was sitting here laughing about the little discourse there. That's
Eddie and I are having issues. We need to go to couples counseling, I think.
Yeah, we might need to. I know a few people, guys. Would be happy to talk to you about your problems.
Okay, so continuing on in a professional manner, Baker was also asked about his personal foul.
Yeah, no, I mean, he definitely addressed that, and that's something that it can't happen, especially in my position. I mean, luckily we're able to, rebound and capitalize the next play, but that's something that it hurts your team, and that's another reason why we're so proud of Orlando Brown is he's eliminated those things that used to hurt us, and so I unfortunately did that to our team, and we were able to bounce back, or else it might have been a different story.
And here's what Eddie, I think, would like everyone to hear, and it's Baker talking about people. Eddie said the P word, people. Baker just calls everybody soft, basically. So here's a little bit of kind of
he must be a listener of the show.
Conversation about Baker and about people that are criticizing him, the people that Eddie can't stand right now.
Realizing the position I'm in is a special one, and being able to have that effect on my teammates and a program and in the fans that come with it, it's a special privilege. And so I think for me, if I was a different fan base, I would definitely say they wouldn't like me, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, if I'm in the program, I earn that respect from the people around it, and that's what matters to me. It doesn't matter what's on the outside.
Do you ever worry that purists get the wrong message from that? Or?
If they're being soft, they can come on the field. This game's not soft. It's not meant for soft people. It's a violent game, and it's meant to be played with an edge. And the tougher and more executed people win. And so that's just how it is. And it's different. It's changing game, but I think that's part of social media. Getting a hold of it and people thinking that this game is something that it's not. It's still football. It's going to be physical. It's going to be an edgy game, a chippy game, and that's what matters.
P word doesn't stand for purist either, by the way.
By the way, Eddie, I don't want you to mistake me. I am not upset with you for doing the video. Like, it's fair game. You weren't the only one shooting a video.
No.
It just happens that we're the biggest outlet that was shooting the video, and it got put out there.
I don't think that I'm not even mad about
it. And I don't care about OU's administration maybe being upset with this over it. I don't care. I think it's fair game.
I'm not mad at all about it.
I'm just saying,
isn't that literally shooting the messenger?
You have my support. That's what I'm trying to say.
I just think that there are some bitches being true bitches about this.
Well, I mean, do you expect anything different?
No, but it's Baker Mayfield. It seems like Baker Mayfield is the first quarterback to ever be up for a Heisman Trophy that has ever gotten a unsportsmanlike conduct during a game. I mean, we listen to it every single day for like the last 2 weeks. It's incredible. And everybody's talking about how like he's just like this some kind of just renegade, just crazy ass bad guy. It's insane to me.
People love a villain. And I mean, look, it's easy to look at, like Baker said, if you're on the outside of this, you probably don't like him. He's easy to not like.
And he really needs to play that up, I think.
If you're not an OU fan, it is easy for you. Now, I think, there are plenty of like stoolies and stuff that think it's awesome.
I think it's just a clear division between a bunch of old people that have no idea what's going on in this country.
This has been going on. I mean, this has been going on since Jamel Holloway. Even before that.
Yeah, and there was probably
Thomas Lott in a bandana drove people
probably
insane.
old people that didn't like it back then.
Joe Washington's silver shoes. There were purists then. By the way, I don't know what a college football purist is.
Probably somebody that doesn't make it up past like 9:30 on a Saturday.
Well, that's kind of me.
Well, and somebody that has told somebody else to sit down at a football game before.
That's just a crotchety old person.
Somebody that is sticking up for. Oh, never mind.
Okay, so Lincoln Riley was asked about it too, and here were his Baker thoughts.
Regardless of what kind of player you are, nobody's valuable enough to have those, and he's got to know where it is. His energy and mentality brings a lot to our team, but he can't cross the line. He knows that. He's got to do better on that.
How do you manage that? Because it seems like Baker's a guy that needs to be on that edge, but you don't want him to go to that. How do you manage that? And it seems like it's something that's recurring with different situations, like after games, before games, whatever. How do you manage that?
No, I don't think it's been recurring. I mean, I think he's had. I think that's the only penalty he's ever had here. No, he had one last year in the Tech game.
I'm just talking about,
Yeah, but that's the opinion of the outside on those. I don't worry too much about those. If he's got something within the game that's going to hurt us as a team, or he does something outside that doesn't represent the program well, then we'll address it. But I mean, guys, barking back and forth before a game. I mean, that happens before every single game with every single player on the field. So I could care less about that. Now, he does something that hurts the team or doesn't represent this program in the right way, then I'll address it with him just like I would any other player on this team.
And the flag thing comes into it. I mean, Eddie's just shaking his head back and forth. But that's always been the thing about Lincoln. Like, Lincoln, he lets him do it. Like, he's not...
Yeah, basically, Lincoln Riley just said, come back to me when something happens that is important.
Yeah.
That's a dumb question.
And the barking on the field, I mean, he said it right there. People can be upset about it or us, for showing or whatever. It happens all the time. I'm sorry you saw reality. I'm sorry. I mean, that's not the first time that Baker Mayfield has probably told people that he's their daddy.
If that offended you, college football's probably not your thing. You probably need to go ahead and enroll your son in cheerleading and just do that on Saturdays.
You people are what's ruining the sport. That's what you're saying. You people are the ones that are responsible for targeting being what it is.
Yeah. It's just incredibly soft.
Eddie's just so upset about this.
I got real triggered on the way down here this morning.
Listening to Pat?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I were both driving back from the city at the same time, so we both heard the same stuff.
I thought you should see my Twitter drafts right now. You don't want to. Glad I didn't send it.
Pat doesn't control his own account, so that's just... If you're going to go after him, it's just fruitless. Go. I'm sorry, Josh. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I thought Lincoln's points were dead on. A lot of coaches would take the real tactful, like, oh, we're very ashamed of what happened. He knows that stuff does not matter. It makes no damn difference, and it happens in every game. And I think it's awesome that he's not trying to pretend that he's embarrassed or that, we've got to talk to Baker about toning it down. That's who Baker is. That's when I said it a couple weeks ago, I think Baker's at his best when he is a little pissed off, when he's found something to get mad about.
He's got an edge, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those few guys that can walk in that line of, like you said, where he has picked something, he's put something on his shoulder, and he's pissed off about it, even if it's not tangible or real or anything. It doesn't even matter. He does better when he's like that than when he's trying to play the nice guy. And I think Lincoln knows that, and I think he knows this stuff. If Eddie doesn't post that video, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody even realized that happened. If Eddie doesn't have one next week, everyone won't realize that it happened when they played Iowa State. Like, it's going to happen. It happens every week in every game, and I think it's awesome that Riley didn't try to pretend or hide behind, some false-ass words. He's just being honest and being realistic about
it. I don't understand why people are upset about it, but it is a culmination of things that have come together. I mean, trust me, and like you said, Josh, it doesn't really matter, so he doesn't have a problem with it. There are a lot of people that would just say, look, it's not worth your time or my time, so just walk a straight line. Like, it's just like with me and Twitter. Like, it's when I get in a Twitter fight, the next morning I hate it because people are still still commenting on all that crap, and I'm like, I'm over it. I had my fight last night. I don't want to keep fighting about the same stuff, 12 hours later. I get done with it. I'm over it. I'm moving on. I mean, some jackass wants to argue with me last night about Tom Petty being Leonard Skinner. I mean, open your ears, idiot.
I don't know what that means.
I got to tell you, there is something going on tonight I'm a little concerned about. We've talked about Eddie's picky eating. There has been a dinner that has been arranged. Not going to give you a location. Chef buddy of mine. Kings of Leon is playing. We're doing this podcast on a Tuesday. Kings of Leon's playing tomorrow night. So some of the guys from the band, I put together a dinner. And Jared Followell's the bass player. He watched some stupid food thing on Netflix about being a vegan or about the processing of meat or so. I don't know what the hell those people watch. I don't know. So now he's like all on this vegan kick. So now this menu tonight, I think Eddie is just learning this. His eyes are glazing over. This menu tonight apparently is like 90% vegan.
Yeah, I probably won't make it.
No, you can order off the regular menu. I told you that last. I tried to prepare you for this. Like, you're going to be eating a dead cow, which I will be too. Gabe Eichert's going to be there. We all want meat. But I'm just curious to see how you react to this tonight. Like, if you eat anything that the chef has specially prepared.
I might just go on a fast until Baker Mayfield reapologizes for all of his sins.
Just trying to transition us out of this.
Well, this is a No You football podcast, and I still want to know.
We have other OU stuff to discuss besides just ripping on soft people for an hour and a half.
I could go 2 hours if we wanted to.
And then we get no recruiting in, and then everybody's mad. We have a lot of new ratings and reviews to go over today. I just don't. I mean, what's the resolution, Eddie? What can be done to solve this, other than just a bitch about people who are bitching about Baker?
I don't know.
So nothing. So it's bye week is over. Iowa State is coming.
Publicly call them out, I guess. Would be the only thing, but we've already done that.
6-8 done.
Is there anybody besides Pat Jones that you're upset with? Because that's one person, and you're letting it ruin your life.
No. I mean, other than the other moron that comes on at 2 o'clock, but it's not that big of a deal.
I don't know if I can let you say that now.
Okay, to
Why?
be fair, you asked.
Not that, because you now represent another station. You're becoming their top fill-in guy.
I don't think
at
so.
The franchise. Well, there's not. It's slim pickings. You're pretty decent. I enjoy it when you're on.
Well, I appreciate that.
Not that I would ever listen to that station.
If we want to fight, we can.
If who wants to fight?
If Traber wants to fight me.
Nobody's fighting. Traver's had so many body parts replaced, he can't fight anybody.
And it'll make it easier.
He doesn't need another hip.
Eddie, now him, you want to move around.
Right.
Yeah, ground and pound might not be a bad idea with him.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That's movement.
Maybe a stab. No, I'll stick with the fist.
Stab with what?
Knife.
All right. We're getting a little too gruesome. You want to talk about
just kidding
football, this team, besides Baker Mayfield and Pat Jones' opinion on him?
Well, I mean, yeah.
I'm telling you, Eddie, if I get a call from Pat Jones pissed off at me because of you,
I'd be more surprised if he could download the podcast, let alone call you afterward after listening to it.
He's not a technological guy. He admits that. He's
And
old.
I like Pat Jones.
You should.
I've said multiple times on Twitter that I love him during football season, but I think he's completely
just an old football coach.
that is completely off base and out of his element talking about this because he has no idea what else is going on in the world.
He doesn't have a Heisman vote. I don't know what you're worried about.
I'm not worried about it at all. I'm just saying that I'm triggered.
You're bothered by it. You're triggered.
That he thinks that some of the stuff that he said, like painting this guy as just a complete criminal almost.
That's just the way it's going to be with some people. They're not going to be able to change their minds. All right. Lincoln Riley did have a press conference. He did update us on what was going on with the injury situation. Here that was.
We're better. We're better than we've been. Will Johnson, we expect him back. Robert Barnes back. Cody Ford back. We'll get Amani Bledsoe back off of his suspension. So be excited to get him back. And then Matt Romar still probably end up being a game time decision. We'll see how that plays out through the week, but not ready to say one way or the other. And then did want to announce that Curtis Bolton is going to have ankle surgery. He'll miss the season.
And the Bolton news, definitely not good. It is good that you're getting Robert Barnes and Will Johnson back. I think we all feared that Will Johnson might be done with another concussion issue, which he suffered from last year. But to say he's going to come back, that's definitely good news. But Curtis Bolton had kind of become the only other option for this defense as a pass rushing specialist in long yardage situations. And they didn't have him in the second half against Baylor. Of course, they didn't get much of a pass rush. So you're going to have to find some way, whether it's Mark Jackson, Addison Gums, maybe Amani Bledsoe does something for you there. But now you've lost a guy that backed up basically all three of your linebacker positions. So John Michael Terry has to step up. Outside of that, God, who the hell even is there?
Well, I mean, we talked about Mark Jackson last week, Addison Gums possibly. I think that, John Michael Terry, as you said, Carey, but, it sucks for depth-wise, but is it being overblown a little bit?
You can't have a single injury, really. I mean, you could at middle linebacker because you had John Michael Terry.
Well, he's going to have to move over, I think.
We need to find out if Ricky Berry is still alive. Ricky DeBerry.
He was finally on the field for the first time down in Waco, but he wasn't suited out. And I think that, his situation, I don't know if he's still overcoming mono or what happened at the beginning of the year when he didn't even dress out for the first couple games. But at the same time, how many quarterback hurries Curtis Bolton has this year?
I'm going to say 2.
0.
Okay.
And he has 5 tackles. So, I mean, they're going to be able to, I think. Is it Josh, is it crazy to say that they might be in a better situation because they can actually play a true freshman now?
Well, I mean, that's the thing it's just crazy. I mean, like, guys, I tweeted something about it when that news broke yesterday. Oklahoma has 6 linebackers and commonly plays 4. And one of those 6 is Ricky DeBerry, who, like Eddie said, hasn't even suited for a game this year.
Yeah.
Are you counting Oboe as a linebacker?
Yeah. And I initially said 5, and then I realized I didn't have Oboe, and he's listed on our scholarship chart as a DN because that's where they've kind of said. But let's face it, he's playing outside linebacker. So, God, like, you just start to wonder, like, what do you do here? I mean, I guess I say we all, but I know for me, and I think you guys shared the sentiment, it was surprising to me when both Mark Jackson and Addison Gums became pure defensive ends. Like, I thought one of them would stick at outside linebacker, especially with the apparent, no sale on Ricky DeBerry. So I don't know. I mean, I know what Eddie's saying, and he's right, that this is like Curtis Bolton is not an irreplaceable player as far as talent, but when you have no one else, your next step is a walk-on.
Yeah,
that's a big deal. That's a problem, and it's just it's one of those. It's we've talked about it for years now, guys. Linebacker recruiting has been pretty good as far as getting real talent like Mark Jackson, Caleb Kelly, and Levi Draper. You go down the list, but there has not been enough depth. When they missed out on a guy like Jacob Phillips, they had no one there to replace him, and it's just it's catching up to him now.
It's like early Bill Bedenbaugh offensive line depth right now.
That's a great That's a great comparison. You know,
Beatenbow went out and got people though to replace.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, you can't say that the depth sucked because everybody got fired because they were sucking at recruiting. They've had the same guy there for a long time.
Yeah,
you have horrible depth at linebacker.
And again, to give his, you know, I know we give him a lot of love, but guys, it's all these years later, he started Derek Farniok and beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Yeah.
That should never, ever. That's still one of the craziest things I've seen.
Bigger indictment on Oklahoma State to lose that game than OU winning.
Probably some.
But he also started Josiah St. John, who tipped off pass or run for an entire half against Texas, and they lost.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. That's true. Hey, he made Bronson Irwin into a tackle. So, you know, that was...
The man is a miracle worker.
Okay, you guys can't do that to me. Bronson has my number. I'm going to hear it
What
from
do you
him
mean?
and
No,
his dad.
I think Bronson Irwin's a really good guard. He just wasn't a tackle. I mean, but he... No, that's
In
not
the
a
Sugar
burn
Bowl-
on Bronson.
In
That's
the
just
Sugar
not
Bowl,
where
he was
fit.
great, yeah. I mean, he was the reason, one of the biggest reasons they beat Alabama.
Yeah, he played really well that night. Yeah, I didn't mean that as a slide on him at all. It was just... That was a lot to ask
I'm
of
going
him,
to
and
say
he kind of found a way to make it work.
Bronson a better tackle than Derek Farniok, though.
Oh, no question. You're right.
Like, way better.
Oh, yeah. He's I guess you could say Derek Farniok's better at being tall. But really, that's probably the one win he has over Bronson, I guess you would say.
I was gonna bring up a name, but he's too busy trying to understand his coach right now.
Thank you, Coach Orgeron.
Yeah, Jacob Phillips, you would be wanted right now and needed.
Well, hopefully things are working out in Baton Rouge. They're 3-2 and should be headed to a really good.
They got a $12 million GoFundMe going on right now, trying to get rid of him.
Should be headed to a really good December 16th bowl game.
They're up to $340.
Well, hey, and the extra bonus for Jacob is in the offseason, he was wrongly accused of rape. So that's, double bonus.
Wow.
It's all going his way in Baton Rouge.
Jeez. Okay, so the news comes out about injuries. Mostly all good news. We'll see on Matt Romar. He didn't make the trip to Baylor, and neither did Robert Barnes, but now they say Robert Barnes is going to be. By the way, and we keep glossing over this because we talked about it last week, but it's been said ever since the off week that Jordan Thomas will be back, so there's no worries about him either. Now, Lincoln Riley did expand a little bit on Amani Bledsoe, and I know a lot of people want to know, okay, how rusty is he? What's he been doing? He's been practicing with everyone this whole time he's been out. Like
he's been doing everything, but suiting
everything
up and playing on Saturdays.
Exactly. And Lincoln Riley talked about kind of what their plan has been with him, trying to keep him ready.
We've kept him, even though he's been on our scout team here for the first several weeks of the season, we kept him in the defensive line meetings. We kept him over with those guys for individual. We tried to keep him engaged as much defensively as we possibly could so that there wouldn't be as much of a learning curve when he got back. And so based on what, we've seen as coaches through the last week, I don't think he's behind at all. So I think it was successful, and he got a chance to, work against our guys, our offensive line. So I think he was getting some good physical work during that time as well.
And the tough thing about Bledsoe, Josh, is we've seen him as a true freshman. We really don't know a whole lot about his game. I mean, that's not really fair to judge him based on what we saw a year ago, but everybody just raves about the kid.
You guys know, I liked Amani coming out of high school. That's kind of where obviously my base of knowledge of him comes from. And then I went out and saw him at the Semper Fi game and was just blown away. He's a guy with a great motor. He fits this defense really well from that perspective. He'll chase. He'll do all the stuff you want him to do. And he's long. He's 6'4" plus. He has the physical tools that you're looking for. So, but you're right. There's all this enthusiasm and excitement for him. And at the same time, you don't really know what he is. And even if he is as good as, everybody seems to think he is and can back up some of that belief, there's going to be rust. He's going to need some time. I don't care how hard you work in the off season and all the stuff you're doing. If you're not playing football and you're not even if you're practicing it like he has been, in a game, the speed's just different. So it's going to take him a little time. People are going to have to be patient, not rush the judgment off of his first few snaps. But what I do think is interesting, and it's something I don't know that I had really thought of before, but when we kind of had this conversation, one leading into the next, does his return make it easier for a Mark Jackson or an Addison Gums to make that move to linebacker so Oklahoma gets depth at one position and they can kind of move some bodies around more naturally?
I is the best that we can hope for, maybe, or that OU can hope for, that he's a better version of DJ Ward, maybe?
Yeah, and I think that, Carey, I think that you kind of hit it dead on, just in that him coming back is going to help DJ Ward.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's face it, when you look at defensive lines, they're kind of going the way of, multiple rotations. I mean, you need to have a two deep that can play for you so everybody stays fresh, because that way guys can play harder when they go in the game. If you're, especially with the tempo the way it is, you're just not going to survive if a guy's taking 80 snaps a game, especially in an in position.
Not in this league.
I mean, Obo can do it, but that's, there's not a whole lot of guys like that.
Well, and Obo's 235 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a different animal. But yeah, I think you're dead on. And, people love to talk about the two big guys at Clemson, but the reason Clemson's so deadly, if you watch them against Virginia Tech and Louisville, it's exactly what you're talking about, Carey. And the same with Ohio State. They can just keep running bodies out there, just never stopping. And so, like you said, when they do get that chance, those guys are fresh and ready to go. And then when the starters come back on, same thing. I mean, so you just get a chance, and you don't have that huge drop-off. And that's kind of where I think Oklahoma, it's been good news for them so far, because you've got guys like Kenneth Mann emerging, Amani Bledsoe coming back. There is reason to think that defensive line is going to get better as the season goes on.
One of the things, I think that I've kind of focused talking with people this week is just Oklahoma as a team. You watch, like, the bye week, you get to watch some football, you get to watch a lot of the national analysis. It's clear that everybody puts Alabama and Clemson 1 and 2 above everybody else. Now, I think 2 weeks ago, OU was certainly in that conversation, but when you have a Clemson team that goes on the road and beats Louisville, they go on the road and they beat Auburn, they go on the road and beat, who did they just beat this weekend? Virginia Tech. I mean, God, and their defense is so dominating. Like, that team's a lot better than Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has to get better if they want a chance to win a national championship. And that was kind of, how I posed this question to Baker, just on, you're 4-0, you're number 3 in the country, kind of, how do you get better?
Baker, the last couple of years, I think everybody's looked at Alabama and Clemson as two teams that have kind of separated themselves, and they're kind of getting that same type of hype this year. How much can that motivate you guys as a team to get better and not, just worry about, overlooking people, but actually strive to get better week after week, to be included in that category?
Yeah, well, I think first, both those teams are playing really well right now. I think that showed with Clemson this past week. That quarterback's young guys playing really well, and then obviously don't even need to go into the defensive talks. I mean, they're great too, and obviously Alabama's outscoring people 1,000,000-0. So it is what it is. Those programs are great year in and year out, but for us, we don't need any motivation from the outside. We haven't arrived yet. We haven't done anything yet. We'll be able to do that talking and see how we stack up against those guys after Atlanta. So, I mean, for us, we don't need to worry about that. It's about Iowa State right now and taking care of business each week.
That Baker Mayfield, he's already talking about playing in Atlanta.
Psychologically, I think this
Program's
plays
out of
into
control.
Perfectly what Baker Mayfield needs.
Just like them being third, them being below, I think that not being considered.
In a perfect world, he would almost like them to be fourth, maybe.
Well, and another thing, not to focus on all the negative that we heard driving back today, but I did hear Schroeder talking about, the quality of wins and stuff. I mean, Oklahoma's still, it's not as many as Clemson has, but still going to Ohio State and winning, that's the best win in college football this year.
Yeah, it is. I would think. I mean,
TCU going to Oklahoma State and winning doesn't even compare in my mind.
I think it was
Oklahoma State's not a returning college football playoff team. They were put in that position by the prognosticators.
Yeah.
They still have issues on defense. They still have one running back who is carrying the ball 30 times a game and may not survive the season. That's kind of my hang-up on OSU, but
I almost think you play a good defense. Like West Virginia can get after the quarterback a little bit. Texas obviously can get after the quarterback. I think their biggest problem is the offensive line situation with Larry Williams out for the year now. Zach Crabtree's battling turf toe. I mean, that the whole entire right side of the offensive line, if they're healthy against TCU, I think they probably win the game.
I don't know. I think TCU might be the better team. If they played 10 out of 10 times, they might win 8.
I just think that Kenny Hill is one of those guys that he played, I guess decently well. We didn't get to watch a whole lot of that game.
What do you have, like 220 yards, though, or something passing in that game?
There's going to be a point, and it might be this weekend against West Virginia. Kenny Hill will lose a game for TCU this year just because I don't think he's a very good quarterback.
I don't
agree
disagree.
100%.
So I pose kind of the same question to Lincoln Riley about just getting better as a team.
Lincoln, you just kind of apply things that you've done as an offensive coordinator trying to make your offense better over the course of a season to an entire team now. I mean, sitting there 4-0, third in the country. How do you make sure that guys are pressing towards getting better every day?
Well, I think it's twofold. You've got to lead them that direction as a staff. You've got to show them the areas where we're doing some good things that we got to continue to build on, and you got to show them the areas that we're not doing very good, and we've got plenty of those. We haven't been very good on fourth down on either side of the ball. We've had too many fumbles offensively. We've forced a few turnovers, but not enough defensively. So we've got some key areas that we know we got to improve on. So. You've got to put that in front of them, and then you've got to have guys you have to have leadership and guys that are hungry enough that don't care about the 4 games before, that just care about us getting better and us playing at our very best, and we've not put our very best out there yet.
And I think that's the hardest thing, especially for a team. I mean, think about this team a year ago. They started out 1-2. It was an uphill climb the entire time, to battle back to respectability. But they had a goal, to win the Big 12, to not lose another game. Now you're at 4-0. Everybody thinks that you're great. And just hearing Lincoln Riley there, it's almost like he's trying to find, Ward on a beauty queen. That's not putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, that's a guy that's talking about haven't been very good on fourth down on both sides of the ball. We need to get more turnovers. They're searching for ways to convince this team that they need to get better.
Well, if this team doesn't think they need to get better, they will get beat twice this year. I mean, they just gave up 41 points to an 0-5 team.
Yeah. And hopefully that, if you're an OU fan, you hope that motivates them.
I would hope it does. I mean,
but we're also talking about a team that has kind of let down the last couple of weeks in certain times.
Yeah, and if they haven't, I mean, I don't think that the leadership is as near where we thought it was, if that's the case.
And hopefully they look at Alabama and Clemson and go, whoa, those are football teams right there.
I think that they do. Us. I think that they do a little bit.
And
they might not believe that, but...
Yeah, I think they've got to understand the margin for error for them is so much smaller than it is Alabama and Clemson. Those teams are, frankly, they're just more talented than Oklahoma is. They have more NFL guys on their roster. Probably, I don't know if 2-1 is the way I'd say it, but it's not that far away from it. I mean, it's for every one NFL guy OU has, they have at least 1.5. I mean, that kind of tells you. So they can't. If Alabama lays an egg, it's still going to be really hard for them to lose. I mean, unless they're playing a quality opponent. They're just so much better. Same with Clemson. They've gotten into that same territory where all their guys are so high level, there just doesn't provide much. There's not going to be a lot of problems they're going to face that they can't deal with. Oklahoma, that's not there, man. I mean, they're getting better. I think we've all talked about 2017. 2018's moving in the right direction. There's some good guys they've developed in the previous classes prior to 2017. But you look at this roster, it's not loaded with NFL guys. Or, I mean, there's plenty of guys who are going to get a cup of coffee, but there's not a lot of first-round draft picks on this team.
Well, No,
Go ahead.
I'm saying, well, let's go into that a little bit. Just kind of latest in recruiting, kind of touch on some recruiting here, and we can get to our ratings and reviews and maybe some final thoughts before we get out of here. But Josh, just kind of take us through. I know it was a big weekend for the coaches to get out. Lincoln Riley going out to Arizona. Some you guys were up at the Owasso Union game, had some coaches up there. Saw Calvin Thibodeau out and about. Just kind of update us on what this last week was like for OU recruiting.
Yeah, I thought the most interesting one, to kind of start with, and like you said, I mean, you look over Oklahoma's travel, and they were everywhere last week. There were a lot of guys out on, various trips, moving around. Obviously, they can't all be off campus at the same time, but Oklahoma did a good job kind of moving guys around as they needed. It's going to start with Lincoln Riley. He was at, as you mentioned, in Arizona on Thursday night watching Spencer Rattler, OU's 2019 quarterback, who dropped 77 on Desert Mountain, who, if anybody recognizes that name, that's Mark Andrews' old high school. So he may have some explaining to do on his next trip to Oklahoma. But Rattler looks great. The next night I thought was much more interesting. It's not that surprising that Riley would go see his quarterback. But on Friday night, they went and saw Trey Brown, the defensive end, Rivals 250 guy from Arlington Lamar in the Dallas area. And he was joined by Calvin Thibodeau. And I had heard some talk that there was initially a plan that maybe one would go see Brown and one would go see Ronnie Perkins. Maybe they would both go see Perkins. There was a lot of kind of deviation on how that might work. But Ronnie Perkins' game, the defensive end from Missouri, actually got canceled by the other team due to forfeiture. So they kind of had to, from what I understand, kind of had to make that work at the last minute. And Brown is a guy that OU's huge on. I mean, if there is, I've said it last week, there are few guys that are higher on their board. But, you look all around. You had Tim Kish going to Arizona looking at a junior college linebacker. We talked about it in the scoop, a guy named Bryant Pirtle. That's one of the better JUCO linebackers in the country. Nothing's happened there, but I think that's kind of interesting, especially we talked earlier about all the depth issues at Oklahoma. To have a big-time JUCO guy might make a difference. Cale Gundy went to Arizona Western, and honestly, it's one of those things where people ask me, well, what's Cale Gundy doing at Arizona Western? I thought he was looking at some of their defensive linemen. They've got 3 or 4 pretty highly recruited JUCO defensive linemen. Then we find out last night that they were out there looking at the tight end committed to Texas, Dominic Anderson, that Oklahoma ended up offering last night. That after his announcement tweet that he had no U offer, he fired out like 3 or 4 real, hashtag Riley's reign, hashtag, the STK, the Sooner Squad stuff. So I mean, it was kind of interesting to watch, and I think there's some reason to think that maybe even though his commitment to Texas is there, maybe he'll look around. And, Tim Kish went to California as well, made a new offer in the class of 2018 to a defensive end from Cajon, I think is how you say that, in the Los Angeles area. So Oklahoma was really everywhere. I know Jay Boulware was at IMG on Saturday watching TJ Pledger and Noah Kane and Ruben Unije. So Oklahoma really just did a great job, and I thought was as orchestrated as I've seen them use their off week. And I know you guys talked to Mike Stoops earlier in the week, and he was just talking about the momentum being so much better. They have all this to sell right now with the big win over Ohio State. And I think they did a great job striking while the iron was hot and making sure a lot of kids saw them at a lot of places. You
landed at a spot watching an offensive lineman that Bill Bedenbaugh, is that right?
Yeah. On Thursday night, I went and saw Daryl Simpson, OU's Rivals 250 commitment. Bill Bedenbaugh was there. Stayed for, probably about a quarter and a half, and then actually I think was going up to the Denton-Ryan-Denton game. It was a nationally televised game to watch a couple of linemen up there. And just, that's my expectation is that's his area, so he was probably just kind of making the rounds as well. But, I mean, what surprised me maybe the most is the game that Eddie and I were at on Friday night, Union and Owasso, with Pat Fields and Jordan Kelly and Josh Proctor, along with both teams having some young guys that are interesting. Nobody was there. Eddie, I know I didn't see OU. Did you see any college coaches? Because I did not.
I think there was a coach from Tulsa, but he was wearing it looked like a coach. I couldn't tell you if it was a coach.
Sure.
He had a Tulsa pullover on, kind of in the coach dress, I guess, dressing wear that you see sometimes. But I don't know if he was actually a Tulsa coach. So I didn't see anybody that was recognizable, though.
Well, then you're at least half a coach ahead of me, because like I said, I was shocked that I didn't see anybody. And Eddie is, as we can both attest, there literally wasn't anybody else not accounted for on that sideline. There was everybody and their mother, especially on the Union sideline, which is why it's always sometimes tough to watch those big Tulsa games, because there are a lot of people that feel they need sideline access.
Yeah, just letting anybody in these days.
Seriously. Yes.
So, do we want to have an uncomfortable podcast Josh storytime moment?
What do we need a story of?
Cussing.
Cussing?
You cussing at people?
Or people getting cussed at?
You?
Oh, well, we've done a pod since that, so I didn't know that we needed that story. But
yeah, I feel like it's almost free advertisement for losers.
Yeah, I don't. The thing about that story that scares me, and our members are going to know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry to the people listening that don't. Perfect time. Sign up, and you can read all about this interaction on Crimson Corner. The thing about that was,
how bitter can a fired recruiting reporter get? Subscribe now for $9.99
if you are too
stupid
to know that I'm not going to fight you or I am handling professional business, then I don't even want to make fun of you, because
it's kind of sad.
You're unbalanced.
Yeah.
That's not healthy.
Like cease and desist from the name.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where you're just like you don't realize why this is not going to happen.
Wouldn't that be the kicker though? Like all the times that Eddie and I have made you cringe with our behavior, that you're the one that gets arrested and taken out of a high school game.
I was talking not long after that happened to a guy that used to work with Rivals. I'll give you two the hint. Big, tall guy that now works for one of our competitors here in Houston.
BP?
We all know him well.
BP?
I don't want to name him. I don't want to, I don't know. I guess whoever I'm talking about will know who it is, too. So, whatever. Brian Peroni from 24/7. I'm talking to him afterward. I realized I'd said it, and I was like, well, it's already out there. There's no stopping it now.
Why should we mention other recruiting networks? We mentioned battling radio stations on this podcast.
Oh, it wasn't Brian works for 24/7. He does a fantastic job. So it wasn't that. Yeah. It was more a matter of, is there anything I'm going to say in this story that is going to make Brian feel awkward, because he has a relationship with this person. So I guess what I was telling him, and I told Tiffany afterward, like all I could see in my mind's eye, even when I was because there was a minute where I was like, I would love to hit you, but I'm just not going to do this. That all I could see in my head was the local Houston news saying, reporter gets in fight with other guy at high school football game. And there's like that close-up, grainy phone video of us like rolling around on the sidelines, like hitting each other. I'm like, that's what I need in my world.
Parents at a soccer
I don't think
match.
you guys would have gone. You guys wouldn't have gone to the ground. He's a one-hitter quitter.
Yeah, to highlight that conversation just a little bit.
It would have been
when he threatened when he was like, "You're gonna get your ass beat," and I looked at him, I was like, "Are you serious right now? Is this a joke?" He's a little guy, like, and that's not like I'm a big tough guy. I'm not, but there's just certain things that physics won't allow for.
Okay, so you mentioned going out to IMG. Any traction out there with Una J, with Noah Kane?
I think with Una J, there are still some things that could change. Obviously, some schools maybe more regional get more serious or whatever the case may be. But I don't think it's that bold right now to say that when he commits next month, it's going to be Oklahoma. I feel pretty confident about that. Now, 3 weeks from now, things that I cannot foresee, maybe that changes. But right now, I think Oklahoma is way, way, way out in front with him. And again, this has turned into the Bill Beatonbow podcast a little bit, but I was thinking about a story I need to write as far as Oklahoma having needs through the years and when maybe they best address them in a class. But you came into this class knowing tackle was a huge need. And to land Bray Walker, Darrell Simpson, and Ruben Unije, 3 of the top probably 12 offensive tackles in the entire country, that's like you wouldn't even have dreamed that as an OU fan 6 months ago. That's ridiculous to think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean it just speaks to, and think about the guys that they're redshirting right now. I mean the quality of talent there, the guys that they brought. I mean, the offensive line recruiting has gone right up there with anything Oklahoma's ever done at skill position, at quarterback, at running back. I mean, it probably is, Josh, the closest thing we've seen to kind of that AD DeMarco Murray pipeline they had going there at running back for a while.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I was talking to someone just the other day about Adrian Ely and how he is developing. I mean, they've got something there. We talked about it last year. Guy was raw and he had a ton of work to do. But I mean, I'm hearing people saying, he's already 10 times better than the guy that just arrived. And if he'll work like Orlando Brown, he has more physical tools than Orlando Brown does, in my opinion. I know people are going to think that's crazy, but he's every bit as long. He's got better feet. I mean, Adrian Ely has a chance to be a special player, kind of like Bray Walker, if he will just apply himself. It's like any of these big guys. It's how much do they want it. And Ely strikes me as a guy that has bought in to the Orlando Brown methodology. And if he'll do that, he can be really, really good.
Let me ask you one guy that seems to, and it's interesting because A&M's kind of rebounded a little bit here recently, and the SEC is down, but I know OU still continuing to work on Deshaun White, the linebacker out of Texas, and I think he's a 3-star, right? I mean, not like I think a guy that's been evaluated by a lot of bigger schools, then they like him maybe more than Rivals has up to this point, but he's been back to Norman. Anything kind of brewing there with Deshaun White?
Yeah, he was at A&M last weekend, and some of the stuff I read and people I talked to say that went really well for A&M. He really, obviously A&M got a nice win over South Carolina. I think it was his first game to actually attend at College Station. So, and he made some comments about, maybe enjoying the game day atmosphere in College Station a little more than he did in Norman a few weeks ago, although one's playing South Carolina, one was playing Tulane, so it's not exactly apples to apples. But I think right now everything's in a holding pattern because I think it's pretty crystal clear that unless Kevin Sumlin is fired or if Kevin Sumlin runs off 4 straight losses from here or something where it becomes imminently clear he's going to be fired, I don't think White's going to decommit. And even if Sumlin is fired, I don't think it's a certainty. He is very adamant. He really – and, it's one of those things where people always get on these kids about, well, you made a commitment, you should stick to it. And I know that he's taken visits, so people think that means he doesn't. I think that's what this is to Deshaun. He made his choice. He really as we all remember, he kind of sweated over it for a few days there when everybody thought he was going to make a choice. And then it kind of kept going back and forth, and there was a lot of conversation between OU and A&M. And I think that was the big – that was what his holdup was, is he wanted to make a decision and be done with it. But with all this Sumlin stuff going on, it's not fair to for anyone to expect him to be like, well, you have to be set to A&M when I may be committed to a different staff. That's not fair. So I think that's what this comes from. I will say Scoop had last week that he is going to take an official visit for the Texas Tech visit weekend. That's starting to look like a pretty good weekend for OU. I think some guys are getting bumped back to there because of this 11 a.m. kickoff this weekend, which was going to be a kind of big visit weekend, but they're going to move that back, I think, toward Tech. And so I think that will be something you look at. If he makes that trip, I think Oklahoma still has a good chance. But there's so much happening at linebacker right now, with OU seeming to be a good spot with Merlin Robertson. I know Tim Kish went and saw his game last weekend, so that's OU's really keeping that momentum going. And obviously Raymond Scott, the Rivals 250 linebacker, also from the Los Angeles area, that Oklahoma seems to be making a strong move for. So Oklahoma's in a good spot with several guys. It's just they need one of them to jump on board so that they can start to push White if that's the direction they want to go, or push Scott, or whatever it's going to be, because I've said it a lot. Oklahoma is getting down to the final few numbers, and a lot of them are locked in. We're going to take one more at this spot. We're going to take one more here. There's not a lot of flexibility in what they're looking at.
It's interesting because in the defensive backfield for Oklahoma, you're going to lose Jordan Thomas, but you're going to get Jordan Parker back, who's still a young guy. Parnell Motley will still be a young guy. Then you've got Trey Brown and Trey Norwood and Justin Broyles. I'm just curious, like, at cornerback next year, is it you see any of the guys in this class that could come in and maybe even challenge a little bit with what they've got now, or is it almost like they could afford to kind of have an off year with defensive backs?
No, I think I think it needed to be a big year, and I think, like I've said before, I expect Oklahoma to definitely take one more defensive back. But you're right, at corner, I see a lot of promise in Trey Brown. I think it's pretty clear that OU likes Trey Norwood. Justin Broyles is a kid that it was always going to take him a little bit of time, in my opinion. He was a kid that was always going to buy into the system, do all the things you asked him to do, super competitive. So, he was going to buy in from a mental standpoint. But people forget, Justin Broyles is coming from 4A Oklahoma football going to Oklahoma. That's a massive leap, and it's not easily done. So I think that's definitely been part of it. And Justin never had the overwhelming physical skills that Trey Brown does. Trey Brown jumps out of bed and runs sub 4.5. Like that's just stuff that's easy for him and it's natural. And Eddie and I actually saw him at the Owasso Union game, and he looks great. I mean, he has really put on some weight. OU has worked him hard. He's really developing quickly.
Yeah. And he was a guy, to be honest. Trey Brown, I watched him in high school. If I hadn't seen him at the Under Armour camp, I probably would have been a little bit more concerned that he was just kind of another Julian Wilson type, where great speed, but not great hips, which I know you love hearing about. But just a little rigid. But now that I've seen him in action, it's almost like his speed can be so blinding that you're just like, okay, well, he can make up for maybe a little lack of mobility here and there.
Yep. Well, but, and Carey, I realized as I'm sitting here kind of looking at the information I had in front of me, kind of ducked your question. I don't think there's any chance that Jordan Austin comes in and makes an impact at corner. He's going to need time, and I think he might end up transitioning to safety. Starlin Baldwin is going to be coming off an injury.
Let me ask you, Jordan Austin, that's always been kind of up in the air. He's had the injury. Mm-hmm. Any chance that he might look elsewhere?
That, and people kind of obviously look to him as one of those guys where they say, well, OU's numbers are getting tight. Why don't they move away from him? We talked about that last week. It's going to be really tough to do. But from the other side, you do wonder if Jordan Austin starts to say,
where's my spot there?
Yeah, am I really going to be able to fit into the plans? Now, we all knew Dakota. And I know Jordan well enough as well. I don't think confidence is his problem. I think Jordan will walk in there believing he can find a spot for himself. I don't really agree with him, but, we'll see. Now, like I said, if he can move to safety, maybe some things could change. It'd be interesting to see how that develops. And I know, I kind of keep coming back, and again, it kind of embodies how much Oklahoma got out and saw people. He went and saw, Kerry Cooks went and saw Jordan Austin play against Jalen Catalon, the 2019 safety offer from Mansfield. So Oklahoma, again, they went out and saw him. They're doing their diligence on him. I think it's a very tough situation because OU wants to have a good relationship with Lancaster, because not only are you having a relationship with Lancaster, but South Grand Prairie and not South Grand Prairie, Duncanville, DeSoto. You run through that area all there through kind of that southwest Dallas, and those are great areas, tons of talent. Cedar Hill being another one. OU needs to be on good terms with those places, and if you go kind of turning a kid away this late in the game when maybe Jordan Austin doesn't have a lot of other options right now, you're going to start off on the wrong foot. And that's one thing when you're Bob Stoops and you've been there 20 years and you have a reputation and they know you've treated their kids well before. But when it's your first year, that's a big gamble to take.
By the way, it's just about time for us to go through ratings and reviews. We have been big timed by Eddie Radosevich, who is doing a radio show right now. He just left. He just
bastard
went to go do his one of his mini radio hits, as they call them in the business. But I did want to get us into a little bit of ratings and reviews, because we've had some interesting reviews recently. And to be quite honest with you, you guys are getting the job done. I think I questioned how good the ratings and reviews were coming along after last week. It was kind of lackluster. I think we could all agree. A little bit lackluster, yes?
Absolutely. I mean, well, we had one, and it was just far too nice. I mean, and, you know, it didn't strike me as someone who really, you know, sat there and laughed with us and then made fun of us when we say stupid things they disagree with.
So you guys have definitely stepped up and done your job this week, and wanted to go ahead and read some of the new ones. By the way, this is kind of our grounders. Like, we love everybody's listening. The podcast is just bonkers. We're approaching. We had over 7,500 individuals listening to the podcast last week. We're getting 10,000 downloads per episode. We'd still love to have more. So if you have any big OU friends that are if some of your friends are huge OU fans, that's what I was trying to say. Jesus, let them know about our podcast, and go subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast from. Please go subscribe and become a part of the podcast listening audience. Now, here's kind of what we've told people. Like, we do love, really nice 5-star reviews and all that stuff. We encourage you to be honest. But our favorite reviews, if you are going to give us 5 stars, is just rip us to shreds in the review, because we find it very entertaining. And a lot of you guys have come up with some fantastic, just really fantastic reviews. And so now we're going to go back to our ratings and reviews from iTunes. A lot of people asked last week, well, how do I rate you or review you if I'm not on iTunes? And, well, I guess you could do it on Stitcher if you wanted to. Maybe we can start checking that if people want to start writing reviews there. But this one comes from Brad Frizzell. This is maybe the weirdest review that we've received. Something Missing is the title of his review. 5 stars. He says, a semi-great podcast with a key ingredient missing. Perhaps a special guest appearance by former player / head coach Gary Gibbs will give this podcast a much-needed boost. Hashtag Gary Gibbs. We've now been rejoined by the guy who big-timed us just a minute ago. Well, Gary Gibbs on the podcast? Anybody? That makes sense to anybody? Is Brad Frizzell maybe Gary Gibbs?
Gary Gibbs was always a very colorful person, wasn't he? Always one for a...
well, if it was gray and brown colors, yeah.
Yeah, not exactly someone I would consider the life of the party.
Yeah.
He put the E for effort on the helmet back in the day.
Carey, if you'd given me probably 50, 75 guesses on the former OU coach that they felt needed to be on the pod, I don't think Gary Gibbs would have been any of those 50 or 75. You
got Barry Switzer, you got Bob Stoops. Heck, Howard Schnellenberger, I think would be more fun.
He'd be drunk.
Well, that's why it'd be more fun.
He could be part of the drunk podcast that everyone wants.
That's what we should do. We should
the drunk podcast.
We should contact Howard Schnellenberger every week to try and get him on the podcast until he does. And then when he does come on, just treat him real shitty.
Are you just going to run that audio, they didn't bring me to run the wishbone, over and over again?
Just continue to ask him why he thought Brandon Daniels was born to run the wishbone?
I'm texting something.
Are you texting Howard Schnellenberger?
Yeah, I'm trying to line him up. All right, let's move on. This one is a really good review. I'm a fan of it. This review on iTunes from, and I have a hard time figuring out exactly what the name is. Hunter Lestistical. Hunter Lestickly. Hunter Lestickly?
Is it on the... I guess I could look it up.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just organize it by most recent, Eddie. That's the best way to kind of figure out where we are.
Yeah. His podcasting review title is Triggered. And this is pretty fun.
My kind of guy.
Staunch Politico, Carey Murdoch, hosts with Eddie Ratto, the much less talented but far more likable sidekick. Literally phoning it in with a voice only a mother could love, Josh McCuistion provides the most substance, which isn't saying much. It's a 5-star review, folks.
We appreciate it.
You know what I find interesting is he didn't even bother to try to spell Eddie's last name, and then he misspelled mine. So there's no Q's in there, people. There's no Q's.
Did we? I'm trying to. The one by OU Greg 87. Are you looking on iTunes, Eddie?
Yeah.
Have we read this one before?
Where is it
couldn't
at?
have. We haven't done a pod since this was posted.
Okay. Yeah. So this is new.
He's good.
Well, let's go in a couple of. This is from ALN 12. Greatest podcast ever is the title. Really love this podcast. Never miss it. Entertaining, informative, worth the time. Keep it up. See, we enjoy those. We love hearing positive things. Eddie, I think Eddie wants me to.
But
Are we warped that we prefer when people are being awful than when they're being really kind and nice to us? There must be something wrong with all this.
Absolutely.
This one from a board poster, WDF 8888. I don't think he likes me on the board. I don't get a sense of that. Not from this review. That's just my own personal opinion.
You know that's not the smallest population, right?
Thanks, fellas, is the title of his podcast. So grateful for the time you spend to keep us knuckle draggers informed. See, that's a shot at me. Josh is aces.
Woot.
He's that, you get that super Josh fan. Like, for some reason, your super fans, Josh, have to hate us, like Eddie and I.
I don't.
It's like a clear.
It's because you're like
it's a recruiting and team thing.
Yeah, you're like the straight lace guy that is not controversial, and we have that certain crowd that doesn't want any of your nonsense. Like, just talk sport. It's the just talk sports crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care for my art or my nonsense, nor do they Eddie's.
It's almost like the small version of I think when we go to like rivals conventions or we're at camps where other rivals guys are there, I think they expect us to like start breaking chairs over Ketchum and Sukamel's back, or like we're going to brawl with the Oklahoma State pubs or something like that. Dude, I've known those guys a long time. They're perfectly fine. Whatever. So it's like we have to pick sides. There has to be someone to be mad at.
Here's another fine podcast review that Eddie's going to rip for being normal. This is from Sick, BQSICK, BQ Sick. Great show, 5 stars. I love the podcast. Way better info than the local sports radio. I also like to listen at half speed. Makes you guys sound really wasted. Ha ha. I've never done that, but to each his own. I don't know why.
I don't know how you could listen to something like that
for 2 hours. That'd make the podcast literally 3 hours long for some of them. Okay, so our final review. We've had a lot of reviews lately. This is from OU Greg 87. I assume that means he graduated. He was either born in 87.
Guessing, I just read it. Guessing by his terminology, I'm guessing born in 87, which was a really good year for a lot of really good people.
5-star review, title, The Dopest Cast. This cast is dope, yo. No, I didn't say yo. Love these dudes, especially Ratto. He's frat. Been subscriber to the website for years. Y'all need to quit using your frat bros / daddies / old high school football coaches accounts and get your own. Just buy one less dime bag a month and you can afford it. Only $9.99. This cast, talking about the podcast, is required listening if you're going to call yourself a Sooner. Keep 'em coming, boys. Daddy needs to eat.
People.
It's a very frat review.
My people.
So there you go. There is your... Okay, shut up, stupid music. You can shut up now. Thank you.
You know how we could have known that was another Eddie doppelganger? Was if after Daddy needs to eat, it would said, or you're going to get a spanking. And then we would have known that it was Eddie speaking to his boy Baker through the pod.
Guys, just take a minute.
By the way, just
take a minute and pray for Baker this evening because he's sinned so much over the last couple months.
T's and P's, Bake. T's and P's.
Well, we got to read one more from our boy Kyle Hughes, who I think is finally moving back to America.
Ooh. I think I read that as well.
Has he not lived in America?
Oh,
he's
God,
he's been in
like Germany,
really?
I think, for 5 or 6 years.
And he might be one of our longest subscribers. Like, he's been on board for a long time.
I don't think that I have realized that he's lived in Germany for this long.
Yeah, because his time of the day when he like rides the bus to work or back from work,
like really early or really late.
He's like really early, so he's always tweeting me during my radio show. Really good dude. 5 stars. A little bit of home is the title. Kyle Hughes. Living in a major European capital, I'm constantly inundated with high culture, world-class museums, ancient architecture, cafes, and the best restaurants, parks, art, classical music, rich history, and so on. This podcast is not high culture. What it is, though, is as good as it gets for information on OU sports. The site is great, but where the value really is for this podcast is for all the in-between-the-lines info that you can't necessarily get from written articles. The guys provide insight into the background of what is happening and help us get a better feel for the mood and the happenings behind the scenes. This is an hour or so I look forward to killing every week, and it's nice to feel more connected to the program since I've moved away. So thank you, Kyle. Very nice. All right, closing this one out. I know Josh has got to get out of here. We've got practice coming up tonight. We have this vegan dinner coming up tonight.
I'm going to have to eat a big lunch. Have you seen the stuff out of Baylor?
No. What's going on?
I guess like rumors, Reddit College Football tweeted that rumors have been circling that Baylor running back Terrence Williams and possibly others are off the team. And he put up a Snapchat that said, "It was nice while it lasted, BU," with a peace sign.
Wow.
They really are trying not to win a game this year.
Burn it down.
If you could tell Rule now that it was going to go the way it's gone, I don't mean the record. I just mean all the other stuff. Like crap keeps coming up. Do you think he'd stay at Temple, which is scary to think?
Absolutely, 100%.
You would choose Temple over a Big 12 program. Like that tells you that they don't really need to be part of a conference.
I don't know. I'll just say this: just being down there, what they're trying to do is they are trying to change the culture of that program, and I could sense that it is changing. But I mean, those are a lot of people that are ashamed at how they carried themselves and what they allowed to happen there. And I think a large part of that fan base is just devastated that they allowed themselves to go there to defend Art Briles and that whole coaching staff. And they're embarrassed that they had an administration in place that allowed to have that stuff happen. But I mean, like the stuff on the video board before games, it literally it seemed hokey, but it's like what they have to do right now, which is they are kind of ripping it all down and trying to rebuild it. So I mean, this it would make sense if they kicked off a bunch of people off the team.
I just don't know why somebody would want to be the guy that turns that around.
I don't know. Because it's in Texas, and I mean, Temple compared to Baylor, the fan base that you have, the people that care about your football program, way more.
Yeah.
It's true. Anyway. All right. Any parting shots, final words before we get out of here this week?
Anybody that's mad at me knows where to find me.
There's no fence built around you?
No. No, not at all.
What do you think you're going to have for dinner tonight?
I don't know.
Queso. They're going to have homemade rice chips.
I don't even know what that is. Rice chips?
Yeah. More vegan crap.
Can you two make sure to sit right next to Jared? You two be on either side of him and just, really wolf on some serious meat.
Well, that will happen.
I told him that there will be beef in the risotto. That's happening. But I don't know about the arugula salad.
Looks like I'm going to have a big lunch today.
So
you want me to read you the menu?
What are Eddie's meat possibilities? Because if beef risotto is his best option.
I can read you the menu here that the chef sent me.
Okay.
Hold on. It's scary. Eddie's not going to go after I read this. I almost can guarantee it. Crap. How far down? Man, I did a lot of texting last night. Oh, there we go. Okay. I am doing, this is from the chef. I am doing roast. Actually, some of this sounds really good. I am doing roasted portobello mushrooms with a mixed olive relish and pickled beets for everyone to share, as well as smoked hummus and tuna tartare with homemade rice chips to share. Eddie is just, he's not having it. Then arugula and asparagus salad in variations for vegans and non-vegans. Then a vegan pumpkin and coconut risotto with grilled figs and spaghetti squash with variations for all. Eddie, we're talking about Eddie, a man who I took to a fine Italian restaurant where he ordered spaghetti and meatballs. Now, on the risotto, beef tenderloin can be added, shrimp or deep water Antarctican sea bass. For dessert, we will have a vegan coconut semi-freddo with lemon-zested blueberries or non-vegan double chocolate cake wrapped in phyllo dough. Eddie, your thoughts?
Oh, my God.
You can have a burger and fries, dude.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Hit Johnny's on the way and just bring in just the biggest bacon cheeseburger you can get your hands on.
Now, this place has legit burgers in it.
No, I've eaten there before.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just love the image. I was with you earlier when you were like, oh, Eddie can get some meat. Okay, fine, no problem. But then you were like, there will be beef in the risotto. I was like, Eddie's not ordering any risotto. That's not going to happen.
I don't think I've ever eaten risotto.
It's just rice. It's soupy rice. It's fantastic.
It is good, Eddie. It's good. It's just from what I can what I can call from your food background, I don't think that was going to be your style.
I don't eat risotto on Tuesdays.
You would enjoy arancini. Arancini or fried risotto balls with mozzarella in the middle of them.
God, I can't wait to go to the Texas State Fair next week.
What is your just corny dog?
Mm-hmm. Corny dog and like 17.
I don't think corny dogs are all that good.
Well, that's crazy.
Are we going to do how long do you think the Texas pod's going to have to be? Because obviously there's a lot to talk about with the game itself, but then you got to get into state fair stuff.
Do we invite Ketchum on the pod? Sukamel maybe. I feel like Ketchum's just going to be a fire starter. Oh, no, there's no doubt. Ketchum would just come on just trying to start bombs. Drop bombs left and right. Saying things, awful things. He'd be hot, leaving his hot takes.
Any awful things that he says, I will one up times 10.
We could just have him and Eddie talk. Like, Carey, you and I can get a glass of water, and they can just go at each other with hot takes for 10 minutes.
I was thinking that we could start another pod, just Eddie and an OSU guy. And then we could do just a me and Ketch pod.
Can we... I got to be really careful how I talk about this. Eddie, while filling in last week on a certain local station...
Oh, you can say the franchise.
Okay. Well, there's several parts to this, and I talked to you guys about all of it. Got to be part of some of the biggest breaking news in Oklahoma sports history, probably. Pretty big deal for Eddie to be on the air while that happened.
The Russell Westbrook news?
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was pretty cool.
I was almost disappointed. I was so excited for Eddie to get to hear that because I was actually in the state, got to hear it, all that sort of thing. But then on the flip side, I missed Eddie trying to play the professional while dealing with someone I know he was going to want to make fun of.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think you would have went at him? Or no, I don't know that you would have. I think you would have wanted to.
No, he's been on before. Again,
okay.
I'm sitting up on this ivory tower. I don't have time to look down at people.
Are you talking about Robert Allen?
Yes. He's a good guy. He's been on the show before, and I've interviewed him, and everything's gone well. So
okay. Then I thought that was going to be an anomaly, so
No.
I apologize.
He's cool.
That's perfectly fine.
Really, he's cool.
He's good though. He's good. I'll just say that he's good.
He's fine with you, is what you're saying.
I think so.
That's the most shocking thing you've said all day.
I'm a little caught off guard by this, and I'm even
maybe he
more caught
doesn't
off guard
like
that
me.
Eddie acts surprised that we are surprised.
He might not like me. I don't know. If he does,
I don't. That's not the part that surprises me, Eddie.
Is it you're okay with him?
Yep.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
like-
We're gonna bully him into saying something awful. I don't want to do that.
That's just like Baker saying, "Well, I didn't say I wouldn't do it again."
Yeah.
About the flag planting.
Yeah. I mean,
any final parting thoughts or shots on Baker Mayfield, since you wanted to derail the entire podcast today just on that?
I just keep him, keep me, keep all of us in your prayers tonight.
What will you do down on? You think that they'll have people watching you down on the field before Iowa State?
I hope they do. I hope they do.
You're going to have your own
football coverage.
Yeah, you're going to have your own security guys.
I hope they do.
trailing you.
If that happens, I will go live on Periscope.
Well, just film them.
Just film them.
Yeah, just film them like you're filming the cops.
Well, who would it be?
Like you're a black guy and you're filming the cops.
I think anybody that works up there, I don't think they would do that. And if they do, I think that would be hilarious.
What if it's that one cop, the OUPD guy? You know, the guy that's always on the road. He hasn't been.
Oh, like the big guy?
No, not Trooper Orr. I don't want to get into this.
Greg? The guy that has the dog?
I don't know.
He's a good guy.
Okay.
He knows me.
Okay.
He's given me a ride home before.
That will be
from the bars.
I will. You never cease to amaze me.
With a Heisman quarterback.
Interesting. Okay. I think we're done here. Eddie, I can tell Eddie wants to say one more awful thing.
I have nothing else. I have nothing else to say. I had some good Texas stuff, but maybe we'll save it for the Texas pod. But with everything going on in the world, I don't think it's very funny. So
yeah, let's be chill. Sad about Tom Petty. Horrified about Vegas. That was awful. So,
crazy.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Appreciate everybody listening. Go check out the website, folks, if you're not subscribing. Tons of inside information at your fingertips, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Crimson Corner message boards. Lots of post-practice stuff. Get it as soon as we got it. All that stuff. A lot of great video from Eddie that you might be missing out on. Post-game, post-practice, all that stuff. So go subscribe, Soonerscoop.com. And I tell you what, until next time, appreciate you, Josh McCuistion. Appreciate you, Eddie, for behaving yourself today somewhat.
Pretty good.
You were pretty good.
Pretty good.
All right. I am Carey Murdoch, and we'll see you guys next time right back here on the Unofficial 40.
Podcasts from Soonerscoop.com.